Hello and welcome, trainers. I'm Joe. Here with me is my co-host Dan.
Hello and greetings.
And we've got another Pokedex video for you all. This time about the final evolution of Bulbasaur, Venusaur. I guess, they're feeling a little sore by the time they get to Venusaur. Oh, was that too on the nose?
Yeah.
On the other hand, there's nothing very Aphrodite about Venusaur. I'm just saying. Nor is there too much that's sore about them. As Venusaur tends to be a bit of a powerhouse, but not in comparison to Charizard and Blastoise, who are much stronger and much better. Let's just be honest. On the other hand, this is a Pokemon that is pretty fun to use instead of them because the other two are too easy when you're playing in the Gen 1 era games. I'm just saying. But the difference between, let's say, Venusaur and Meganium is that for some reason I find Venusaur just a lot more likable as a Pokemon. It's just down to personal bias, I guess.
And one thing about Venusaur and the Bulbasaur line is that as time passes, they're getting more and more popular.
Yeah, I guess. What's more is that in terms of lore, Venusaur is noted for the big white spotted flower on his back. And this flower comes from that of Ivysaur blooming at long last. And apparently releases a huge soothing scent that attracts Pokemon and calms them down. And it tends to be particularly strong after a rainy day. And that said, in the first anime, Venusaur played a role in evolution ceremonies involving Bulbasaur and Ivysaur. And it is a incredibly rare Pokemon. That said, May in the anime has a Bulbasaur who's evolved fully. Then she basically gets him back, having done nothing of the work and not having earned this Venusaur. So that's just, Venusaur is hardly depicted in the original anime, though, and it only really shows. There's the only Venusaur of note that shows up is Brute Root from Mewtwo Strikes Back, with Brute Root having actually been pretty powerful, but was captured and cloned because Mewtwo. That said, like I commented, there's no real Venusaur that stands out in the anime. Not like Blastoise and Charizard. That said, in the manga, we've got a pretty formidable Venusaur in Soar, who is a pretty fearsome Pokemon, which the thing is, Soar had evolved into Ivysaur in War Turtle Wars, as mentioned, and in turn evolves into Venusaur in the Winged Legends chapter, while fighting against the three legendary birds, or at least a merged version of them. And he helps contribute a lot in defeating them by using Solar Beam, while the other two, while Charizard and Blasty, that is to say blue and green starters, used Flamethrower and Hydro Pump respectively. That said, there is one aspect of Venusaur that we didn't discuss that I think is pretty interesting, and that's that the two other trainers, Blue and Green, got the easier route, so to speak, from the Pokemon game. They got the better starters. Let's just be honest. Red did not get the handicap Pokemon. Red got the, well, not the handicap. What I should say, he did get the handicap Pokemon, but he did not get the easy way out. He did not get the. He had to train the much harder to train, and use the much less powerful Pokemon than the other two. And in a lot of ways, Pikachu, the Pikachu line, especially Raichu, is in some ways better than Bulbasaur. Ash also got a lot more luck in his starter than Red. Red had to make do with Soar. But that said, Soar is no ordinary Bulbasaur. And by the time he reaches Venusaur, he is a powerhouse. But what's interesting is that Red defeats both Blasty and Charizard, respectively. And this just goes to show how powerful that Venusaur is. So where the manga showcases Venusaur as a powerhouse, the anime showcases him as a throwaway Pokemon of no use and no real note. So you have a marked contrast in tone, arguably, in how they approach Venusaur. But I think it's because the manga is approaching it a bit with the DBZ mentality of pull yourself up by the bootstraps, and even a third-class Saiyan can achieve wonders that the first class couldn't even imagine. That's the idea. Red and Soar are able to achieve heights of power and accomplishments far greater than what Blue and Green are. Although I would argue that, in my opinion, as a trainer, Green has more potential than Blue. Blue's an unimaginative hack. And I know I sound like I hate Blue. I don't. It's just he's relying on the very basics of strategy, and he's not inventive as a person by nature. Green and Red vary things up. They think much more strategically, and they approach every problem with a new solution every time. So, arguably, they have more potential. Although, let's not even get into how the manga effed over Gold, whom is a talentless moron, dumber than Kuwabara, and undeserving of even a single Pokemon in the manga. Whereas in the video games, Gold is probably the ultimate trainer. So that he ends up conquering Soar, which that would be the only real loss that Soar suffers after becoming a Venusaur, which I'm just contrasting game versus manga to an extent. And I think that the game storyline is much more epic in a way because Soar is built up a lot more if you combine just the first chapters of the Pokemon Adventures story with the Gold and Silver and Crystal video games rather than the manga.
Because initially, Gold was portrayed as an Odyssean type.
Yeah, a very Odysseus type figure who uses cunning. But the writer came along and began to hate on him and decided to portray him as a moron. And honestly, his team is terrible. He's terrible. He should just die towards the end of the manga arc as Red overtakes the story and steals away the story from him. In a way, I would argue is worse than Goku and Vegeta doing that to Gohan in the Buu Saga. Because I'm just saying, Gohan at least had the Dabura fight and the Super Buu fight. Gold did not even get that. So Soar is really not well serviced in those storylines of Gold, Silver, and Crystal. What would have been better is for Red to have been set aside until the final battle and challenge of Mount Silver, and for Gold to end up having to fight Soar and whatnot. But we'll make a separate video regarding what should have happened. Maybe we'll even just essentially do a fanfic Gold, Silver, and Crystal story in place of the manga, because we could probably do it better. But tell us in the comment section whether this would interest you and what you think of our analysis of Venusaur and Soar in particular, and our fondness for Soar as a Pokemon. And don't forget to smash that subscribe button as though you were Sor taking down Charizard.